Gathering Youth. My name is Landon, and I am so glad that you decided to join us today. We are on week 3 of a series that we have been calling Love, Hate, and it's been an awesome series. Over the last 2 weeks, we've talked about how to, how to speak with love, how to lead with love, how to confront with love, how to deal with gossip, and how to deal with confrontation. It's been an awesome series, and I know I've learned stuff from it, and I hope you have too. And so today, we are actually going to finish this series out, and we are talking about a sermon that I am titling Off Brand. And so if you're taking notes, I encourage you to go ahead and put on the top title, underline it, bold it, highlight it, whatever you got to do, put Off Brand. And so I want to take a few seconds with you, and I'm going to say some brand names, and I want you to kind of think about, what happened, what you think of when you see it. So I'm going to give you an example. What do you think of when I say Apple? Does the iPhone come to mind? Does the iOS ecosystem come to mind? Does a MacBook come to mind? Does maybe the word bougie comes to mind? Whatever. I don't know what you think of when you think of Apple, but I know that there's a brand that Apple is trying to represent. What about when I tell you Forever 21? What do you think of when I tell you Forever 21? Do you think, in-season fashion that you can get for a really good deal? Or do you think, cheap fashion? Whatever you think is interesting. What about Supreme? Do you think expensive, overrated, or, always copied? Maybe that's what you think when you think Supreme. Or what about when I say Ferrari? Do you think of fast cars and, Italian countryside races? Or do you think of like Fast 5, which is the best of the Fast and Furious movies? Don't at me. What do you think of when I say Ferrari? But it's interesting that we have certain connotations that come to mind depending on the brand that is said to us. And that's interesting because these companies spend millions, and some of the big ones, billions of dollars trying to create this brand so that when you see that Apple logo or you see that Microsoft logo or you see that Rolls-Royce logo, that something comes to mind when you see it. And that's a really good thing, or it can be a very bad thing. But it's not just companies that we have these assumptions over, and it's not just companies we have these associations with. We also have these associations with people. And so when I say, I'm going to say some example sentences, and I want you to fill in the blank. Now, don't, say it out loud, or you could say it out loud. But I want you to fill in this blank, and it's going to be interesting. So people with TikTok clout are blank. What do you think of when I say that? Or band kids are always blank. Or cheerleaders always act blank. Or, rich kids always blank. Or, vapors are always blank. Or kids from Wiregrass are always blank. Students from John Long are always blank. Or AP honors students are always this way. When I said those, something came to mind. When I said blank, you probably had a word in there. You probably had an assumption that you made as soon as I said the word band kid, or as soon as the word I said cheerleader. Something came to mind. And these are assumptions we make about people. And we make assumptions based off of 2 things. We make assumptions based off our experiences and then our insecurities, which is very interesting. We make assumptions based off our experiences and based off of our insecurities. So before we go into any more, let's jump into the Bible and see an example of when Jesus did not make an assumption. We're in John chapter 8. We are going to be going through verses 1 through 11. It's a pretty good chunk of Bible, but don't worry, I'm reading it, and it will be on the bottom of your screen. But I want to set the picture here for you. I want to give a little prologue because jumping into the Bible without any context is like jumping into Avengers Endgame without having seen Infinity War. You don't know what's happening, so you always got to have context. So Jesus he's been in ministry for a little while now, and he is talking with the disciples, and there's this group of people called the Pharisees. And the Pharisees are these super religious people that were always trying to get Jesus to mess up, because Jesus was doing exactly what they did not expect. See, they wanted to keep their power. They wanted to hold people enslaved to religion, whereas Jesus wanted to free them into a relationship. And so they wanted to keep their power, and Jesus was not what they expected. And so they kept trying to trap Jesus. And of course, Jesus was too smart for that. But this is a story where they tried to trap Jesus. All right. So early in the morning, so it's going to be John chapter 8, verse 2. It says, early in the morning, he came again to the temple. He is Jesus in this story. All these people came to him, and he sat down and taught them. The scribes and the Pharisees brought a woman who had been caught in the act of adultery and placed her in the midst. They said to him, Teacher, this woman has been caught in the act of adultery. Now in the law, Moses commanded us to stone such women. What do you say? This they said to test him, and that they might have another charge to bring against him. Jesus bent down and wrote with his finger on the ground. As they continued to ask him, he stood up and said to them, Let him who is without sin among you be the first to throw a stone at her. And once more he bent down and wrote on the ground. But when they heard it, they went away one by one, beginning with the older ones, and Jesus was left alone with the woman standing before him. Jesus stood up and said to her, Woman, where are they? Has no one condemned you? She said, No one, Lord. And Jesus said, Neither do I condemn you. Go, and from now on, sin no more. So there's a lot going on in this story that is really interesting. First off, we notice that they had found the woman in the act of adultery. Now, that's interesting because they found a woman in an act of adultery, which either means one of them was the one with her, or they had followed her, or set her up, or they knew she was going to commit this act of adultery. We don't know. But there's more to the story with that. And then we don't know what Jesus was writing in the ground with his finger. There's a lot of theories. Some think, he was writing the names of the Pharisees that had slept with the very same woman before, but there's no evidence for that. But it is a certain interesting thing. But what's so interesting is the way Jesus responded with, let the one who has sinned cast no stone. See, there's only one person in the room that by that rule had the ability to stone her, and it was Jesus. And there's a whole lot more to that too, because at this time there's this empire called the Roman Empire, and they're occupying this territory, and only Roman, law courts were allowed to issue death sentences or stoning sentences. So had Jesus said stone her, Jesus would have broken the law. And that's what the Pharisees also knew. That's why they said that they were trying to trap him. So they thought whatever he did, they've set up this perfect trap for Jesus, that they were going to be able to get him, and either the Romans were going to kill him or people weren't going to listen to him anymore. But Jesus perfectly answered with love. And he didn't make an assumption about her based off of the sin she had committed. And so that's exactly how we need to be when it comes to sin. And it comes to assumptions. See, Jesus never made an assumption about you, and he never made an assumption about me. See, 2,000 years ago, he died on a cross for me and for you, and just a few weeks ago, we celebrated that at Easter. And he did all that. He suffered all that pain. He took 40 lashes from a cat of 9 tails on his back, which would have ripped the very skin off of his back and exposed his back muscle. He took a crown of thorns to the head, and he died naked and bloody and in extreme pain on a cross for me and for you. And he did that without making assumptions on us. He did that out of love. See, Jesus did not have to do that. In fact, he would have been completely justified with, after we had all begun to sin, with him just sitting in heaven and being like, you know what? They're all going to hell. I don't care. He would have been completely justified in that. But he didn't do that. He came to earth and died for you and for me so that we wouldn't have this assumption of guilt put on us. And so because Jesus did that for us, we need to do that for other people. We need to be careful not to make assumptions. And we need to be careful when we do make assumptions to understand where it's coming from. You see, when we make assumptions, like I said earlier, there's two things that we make assumptions from. We make assumptions about our experiences, and then we make assumptions about our insecurities. With our experiences, we tend to make this invalid argument that because I've experienced this from somebody, everybody is like this. Because this girl cheated on me, all women cheat on me. Because this guy has a Snapchat score of 500,000 and says he's not talking to anybody, and that's obviously a lie, all guys are like that. Or because this person is in band and they act this way, all band kids are like that. See, we make assumptions based off of our experiences. But what's more interesting is the fact that we make assumptions based off our insecurities. We tend to make assumptions about the people we want to be or the people that we are jealous of because we want to bring them down. I'm going to repeat that. We tend to make assumptions off of the people that we want to become. So let's say you want to be a doctor and you're struggling in school, and then you find yourself making assumptions about, other students. Maybe you're a biology major, or you want to go study medicine, and you start thinking, man, those communication majors, they're just not that smart. Why are you saying that? Why are you making that assumption? Is it because all communication majors are not that smart? No, that's not the case. That's a logical fallacy. That's not true. Why are you making that assumption? Well, I'd be to say that there's an argument that you're insecure about your intelligence. And so you've got to make an assumption that everyone who's not in your field is not as smart as you. Or everyone in other fields that are not your field are not as successful as you. I don't know. Or maybe you're single right now, and maybe your older sibling has a really great relationship with his boyfriend his girlfriend or her boyfriend, and they've got it great. They are together, they're sitting together at the same booth, they're always texting each other all the time. They talk in the we, they're just merged into just one person. They go everywhere together. They're always holding hands. And maybe you're like, there's something wrong there. She's cheating on him. Or there's something wrong there. They don't have a great relationship. Why do we think that? Not because we don't know they don't have a great relationship, but because we make assumptions out of our own insecurity because we want what they have. And so in order to make ourselves feel better, we've got to tear down what they have. And that's not healthy. That's not good. That's no way to live. And that's not what Jesus has called us to be. Jesus has not called us to be a jealous people. Jesus has not called us to be a people that constantly assume about other people. We don't judge the book based off of its cover because Jesus didn't do that for you and he didn't do that for me. Had Jesus made an assumption about me and you, we would not be going to heaven when we die. We would have been left alone here, and this would have been as best as it got. Had he made assumptions based off of the mistakes we've made, based off of the things we've done, based off the things we've looked up, the things we've watched, the things we've said, the things we've stolen, the things we've done. He could have made an assumption about it, and he would have been completely justified in doing so, but he didn't. He was not satisfied with making an assumption that because we were sinning, that we were worth nothing. He didn't make that assumption. He made the choice that because he loved us so much, that there was nothing he would not do for you and for me. That he left heaven. Now I'm going to be honest. Heaven sounds so awesome. I wouldn't leave heaven. I personally am a little selfish on that. I would love to stay in heaven and wouldn't come down to earth to die for people. But Jesus did that. That just shows how incredible Jesus was. He left the comfort of heaven to come to earth, to live in an area and at a time that had no air conditioning, had no awesome entertainment. And he died for you and for me. And of course, he rose from the grave again. But he didn't make assumptions about it. And so we need to apply that same thing with us. So when you find yourself making an assumption about somebody else, I want you to ask this question now. This question is, you've heard it all the time, and it can be a little, on the nose, but if you actually ask yourself this question with the intent to answer it, it will change the way you act towards people, all right? Ask yourself, what would Jesus do? He would love first. That's what Jesus would do. So when you think of somebody and you think, well, these TikTok kids what would Jesus say about them? Jesus would say they're worth everything, just like he paid everything for you and for me. So we need to be careful not to make assumptions because assumptions were not made about us. Now, maybe you've never heard of this Jesus, and for the first time ever, you've heard that there's this God that loves you, that he doesn't want to strike you from heaven, and that he actually cares about you, that he's just not some angry guy sitting in the clouds, that he loves you and he cares about you, and he gave everything he had to have a relationship with you. And maybe that's the first time you've ever heard it, and that's awesome. And maybe you want a relationship with this God, which is awesome. I highly encourage you to do it. And you want to know how to do it. Well, it's very simple. You just pray a prayer. Now, we'll go through the prayer in just a second, but I want to make sure you're clear on the decision that this makes, because if I'm telling you that a life with Jesus is awesome, but I don't tell you exactly what's going to happen, I'm a bad salesman. And that's not what I'm here to do. I'm not here to sell you on Jesus. I'm here to tell you how awesome He is, and you can make a decision on your own about Him. But what you're doing, if you decide to have a relationship with Jesus, is you're saying, I am turning my back on living my life by my rules. And I am turning it to living life by Jesus. And I'm turning it to follow Him. Now, I promise you, life is not going to be easy when you turn to Jesus. I promise you that. If any pastor ever tells you that life is easy with Jesus, it's a lie. And they meant it not to do harm, but they meant it to show you just how awesome life with Jesus is. And it is. It's the greatest decision you'll ever make. But it will not be easy. Life with Jesus is not a fire insurance. If you just want to pray this prayer we're going to go through to get out of hell, but you don't want to live life like Jesus, it doesn't matter. It's not an insurance policy. It's a decision to follow Jesus for the rest of your life. It's a huge commitment. It's an awesome commitment. But I want to, out of love for you and everybody watching this, I want to be absolutely clear with what this prayer means. And so it's just an honest ask to Jesus, though, that He would come into your life. And He will. The Bible tells us if you ask Him, He will. And so this prayer we're about to pray is not some spell. It's not a chant. The words don't really matter. All that matters is the intent behind the words, your heart. So if you want to have a relationship with Jesus, I encourage you to pray this prayer after me. And you only have to pray this once in your life. If you only mean it, you only have to pray it once in your life. You don't have to keep praying it every time you make a mistake. You're saved. You're going to heaven when you die. Jesus lives with you. He's for you. If you want to make that decision, I encourage you to pray this after me. Say, Dear Jesus, thank you for dying on the cross. I'm asking you to come into my life and to teach me how to live. I'm turning to you for the rest of my days. In your name, amen. Now, if you prayed that for the first time, in just a few moments, I'm going to go over ways to connect with us. And I want you to reach out to us. I want you to reach out to me personally or to any of our youth team or Gathering Church team, because we want to celebrate with you. It's the greatest decision you've ever made, and we want to help you make the next steps, because just leading you through this prayer is not, it's awesome, and we're so glad that you made that decision. But there's steps that will help you further your relationship with Jesus, and we want you to have the best possible relationship with Jesus you can possibly have. And so we want to help you take the next steps. We won't embarrass you. We're not going to drag you up onto a TV and put you on screen. That's not what we're going to do. We just want to celebrate with you and answer any questions you may have. All right, so I want you to reach out and contact us in just a second based off of the ways to contact us I'm about to go over. Awesome. Well, thank you guys so much for joining us today, but here are some ways I want you guys to contact us, because these are the best ways to find out everything going on in Gathering Youth and keep up to date with everything and all the games we're doing and challenges and all that. So the best way to find out all information from Gathering Youth is from our Instagram, which is at We Are Gathering Youth. Youth is spelled YTH. It's at the bottom of your screen right now. If you'll just type that into Instagram, you will find us, click that follow. We want you to follow us. It's the best way to stay up to date with everything going on in Gathering Youth. We do giveaways, we do all that stuff. You don't want to miss it, trust me. You don't want to miss out. It's going to be awesome. Another way to stay up to date with us is from our YouTube, which is also We Are Gathering Youth. And so if you want to jump onto that, the link is going to be in our Instagram page on our YouTube posts. Just feel free to click that and go there. Make sure you subscribe to it. Make sure you give us the thumbs up so that we can, get better access to everybody and we can get our videos out to you sooner and you don't miss a thing, because you don't want to miss it. We're going to be doing some really cool stuff with YouTube in the coming season. It's going to be really awesome. I really encourage you to do it. And then 3, there's another way to contact us, which is going to www.gatheringchurch.cc, which is the website. It's also at the bottom of your screen. If you'll go to that, you'll find all the ways to contact Gathering Youth. You'll be able to find out all information about Gathering Church. Because if you don't go to Gathering Church and this is the first thing you've ever seen of Gathering Youth or Gathering Church, we would love to have you check us out. So just go to www.gatheringchurch.cc. That's an awesome way to connect with us. And of course, all of these are going to be on the slide at the end of the video. That'll just be playing at the end. So if you want to contact us, feel free to do that. And then my last announcement is I want to invite you to join us on Wednesday nights for our G groups. They're awesome. We do them on Zoom. All you got to do is click the link and you are in. We do them on Wednesday nights at 7. And if you want to get the link, there's a very easy way to do it. You just go to our website, go to youth, and you'll be able to see G Group Live, or you can direct message us on Instagram. You can text that number that'll be on at the end of the video. You can do any of that, and we will make sure that you have the link and you are able to join us on Wednesday nights at 7. Trust me, you won't want to miss it. Thank you guys for coming. Have a great day. Make sure you stay in contact with us. Love you. See you next week.